Welcome to this explainer. Okay, I want you to try something for a second. Picture yourself standing in knee-deep snow, somewhere way up near the Arctic Circle, right in the middle of the 9th century. Above you, the sky is this heavy, cold iron color, and the wind? It's so sharp it literally feels like a physical blade slicing through every single layer of thick wool you have on. It is a brutally indifferent environment, and today we're going to look at how one civilization didn't just casually survive this frozen wasteland, but actually turned it into their ultimate weapon.
So, you really have to ask yourself, what happens to war when the entire world just freezes over? You'd probably assume that in an environment this deadly, where the cold can literally swallow a person whole, even the absolute toughest, battle-hardened warriors would just retreat, hunker down in the smoky warmth of a longhouse and just wait it out until the spring thaw. Honestly, that's what makes the most sense, right?
Well, here is where it gets wild. While other European societies looked at frozen rivers as impassable barriers and treated deep snow as an automatic seasonal truce, the Norse completely flipped the script. They actually saw the winter as a tactical opportunity. In this brilliant reversal of expectations, they weaponized the deep freeze to become what we can really consider history's original special forces. They didn't stop fighting at all, they just totally changed how they fought.
Which brings us to our first key piece of the puzzle, the technology, built from ashwood and sinew.
To actually pull this off, they relied incredibly heavily on specialized gear. Because if you wanted to eat in the Viking winter, you couldn't just wait for food to wander by. You had to go get it. Picture a craftsman sitting in a freezing shed, hunched over his workbench with these cold-reddened yet perfectly steady fingers, carefully repairing an absolute survival lifeline, the Viking ski. Now, we really need to scratch our modern idea of what a ski is. These definitely weren't for a fun weekend recreation out on the slopes. Crafted from curved ashwood and bound tight with animal sinew as thread, they transformed a frozen void of impassable, snow-drowned mountains into high-speed, strategic highways.
But gear alone is only half the story. Let's look at the biological furnace, or what we can call the northern package.
You see, the Vikings actually possessed what was essentially a biological local update to the human operating system, totally tailored for the Arctic. Thousands of years of intense natural selection gave them a stockier, much more compact build with shorter limbs relative to their torso. This is basically the biological embodiment of Bergmann's and Allen's rules, perfectly designed to hoard body heat instead of radiating it away. They also evolved narrower, projecting noses. Why? Well, it acted as a built-in furnace to warm up and humidify that dry, bitter air before it could do any damage to their delicate lung tissues. Add pale skin to maximize vitamin D from the incredibly weak winter sun, and you've got a fully optimized human.
Because of these specific evolutionary tweaks, they operated quite literally as living, breathing, biological radiators. They were capable of maintaining incredibly high energy output in a cold that was utterly paralyzing to anyone else. Just imagine facing an enemy who is completely frozen, barely able to even move their hands, while you are just thriving, your body naturally hoarding heat and protecting your lungs. The tactical advantage there is absolutely massive.
So let's talk about tactical brilliance and how they went gliding through the long dark.
How did they apply this mind-blowing technology and biology on an actual battlefield? Well, Viking raiders executed what we'll call the logic of the freeze. Step 1, ditch the horses. They were way too loud and would just get hopelessly bogged down in the deep drifts. Step 2, travel insanely light. We're talking skis, thick fur cloaks, shields, spears, and bows. And finally, step 3, utilize the frozen rivers. While everyone else saw ice as a dead end, the Norse saw it as a perfectly flat, completely silent highway leading right to their enemies' front doors.
When they put these steps into action, man, they truly earned their reputation as ghosts. Gliding through that perpetual twilight of the Viking winter, their breath steaming in the frigid air, they moved with a speed and silence that must have felt entirely supernatural to their rivals. They were so well trained they could actually shoot arrows mid-glide. No way, right? And if they needed to retreat, they could vanish completely without a trace through dense forests. They'd strike exactly when rival clans let their guard down, falsely believing that the brutal cold was keeping them safe.
This mastery of the cold brings us to a fascinating cultural point, the ski god Ullr and the ice.
This absolute mastery of winter warfare wasn't just a neat tactical trick. It was so foundational to who they were that it extended deep into Norse theology. They literally elevated the ski warrior to the divine by honoring Ullr, the legendary Norse god of skiing and archery. To the Viking mind, he was it, the absolute ideal of the winter warrior, the divine embodiment of a fighter who could flawlessly navigate the most treacherous, snow-drowned slopes, all while maintaining a perfectly steady, lethal hand on the bow.
Emulating Ullr in a place where the cold can kill you without a second's warning meant survival required way more than just physical strength. It required intense, specialized environmental knowledge. This was the hidden genius of the Viking raider. They knew how to do things like listen to the house to detect structural weaknesses caused by the immense weight of snow on the roof. They could navigate by reading the stars when every single physical landmark around them was buried under a featureless blanket of white.
There's this old concept, the ice talks to itself. I absolutely love this. A true Viking raider understood the actual rhythm of the frozen world. They knew exactly how to listen to the groaning ice beneath their skis. Recognizing that subtle language of freezing and thawing water was quite literally the difference between a highly successful raid and a sudden, icy death in the dark. The ski raider was the ultimate expression of human adaptability.
Let's bring it all together in our conclusion. The fire of the mind.
Think about it. When these raiders finally returned home to the Longhouse, their survival was the result of a mosaic of countless small, calculated choices. They didn't build grand, towering fireplaces because, well, chimneys just suck the heat right out. Instead, they chose to stay low, sharing precious body heat with their livestock, keeping the physical fire low, but the fire of their resilience burning incredibly intensely. Ultimately, they turned suffering into tradition, and they turned ice into a weapon. They didn't just endure the hostile Arctic, they stoked the fire of their own resilience to turn the absolute most unforgiving environment on the planet into their greatest tactical asset. They belonged in the long dark.
And that leaves us with a really powerful final thought for this explainer. If the Vikings could literally weaponize the deadliest winters on Earth through specialized gear, biology, and sheer force of will, what long dark are you built to adapt to and overcome? We all share this incredible human capacity to adapt, you know? It really makes you wonder what modern frozen barriers in our own lives we can transform into our own high-speed highway.